purpose, if I were to ascribe one, and there are many to this conference though, is to kind of foster the notion in our students, most of them business students, since I happen to be in the Walker College of Business, that it is our business to build a better world. And I think we had a great lecture last night by Andy Atcher about Ford and some of the comments that Ford's chairman has made about how they and business has helped us get in this mess, and it behooves us to help get out of this mess. And I think as we graduate business leaders, which is our aspiration, we want people that are going to go out there and make the world a better place for all. One of the 17 SDGs is equality and eradication of poverty and so on. So profit and good are not incompatible. Personally, I think good trumps profit, but I'm in education, I'm not in business. So there are people that come at it from a different side. But the goal is that I'd say from today's event that business grads, when they go out, have a sense that it's their responsibility to make this world a better place. And we have great speakers this morning that are going to, I think, support that notion and flesh it out in a way that I wouldn't be capable of doing. So I'm going to call Jesse Pipes to introduce our first speaker.
Good morning. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Jesse Pipes. I'm a professor of practice in entrepreneurship in the Walker College of Business. And I have the great privilege of introducing our first speaker this morning, John Replogle. But before I do that, I needed to ask you a question. So for a second, I want you just to reflect internally if you are more of a prophet or a wizard. I'm just curious if there are any wizards in the audience this morning. No wizards. So does that mean you are all prophets? No prophets. Sort of like my classroom sometimes. No one put on deodorant, I guess. Perhaps if I provide a little context, what I mean by defining prophet and wizard this morning. What I'm trying to get at, or what I see as sort of two different or completely different views or angles or approaches to addressing saving the planet. So I've been looking at a book recently by Charles Mann. He wisely has named it The Wizard and the Prophet. And so in doing so, he sort of defines the prophet as these individuals that are out there sort of urging us to cut back because doomsday is coming. And if we don't do this today, we will all peril. Whereas the wizard, sort of on the other side, he's urging us to charge forward, knowing or thinking or believing that technology has the ability to help us solve all of our problems. So when I do that, what I want to sort of summarize is to recap. You're either a prophet, so you see grave danger in the immediate future, or you're a wizard, and a wizard as well, perhaps more optimistic. So here's another paradox for you. I don't know if you knew, but farmers are most likely to feel the negative consequences and impacts of climate change. Yet, they are most likely not to believe in climate change. So I'm not sure what our wizard brains and our prophet brains are going to do about this, these modern environmental challenges. But perhaps a great place for us to start is actually sort of thinking about and defining what these challenges actually are. Buckminster Fuller once said that you never change things by fighting the existing reality, but to change something, you need to build a new model that actually makes the existing model obsolete. And I think our first speaker truly understands the challenges of disrupting the status quo. He's someone who cares enough to see, to connect, and to lead to make change happen. So now I'm going to leave it up to you to decide whether John is a wizard or a prophet. But I will emphasize that I think he is someone who understands the modern environmental movement and the challenges that we face, and also the value of investing in purpose-driven companies. As a former CEO of Burt's Bees and Seventh Generation, I'd like to welcome up John Replogle. Please help me give him a warm Mountaineer welcome.
It's great to be here at Appalachian State. I'd like to thank Dean Norris for inviting me here. It's wonderful to be with you. And Jesse, thank you for the warm introduction. And welcome to everyone on live stream. Exciting. I'd love to see the show of hands from students in the audience. Who are our students? Awesome. Wonderful. I think it's wonderful that there are so many faculty in the audience, and I certainly hope you take a lot from my remarks, but I love to speak to them. For me, it's about the next generation and trying to instill an important message for them to hear, to think about, absorb, and to build into their life so that they can act upon it, have impact. So forgive me if I focus on this. And to Jesse's point, this morning I'm going to start more as a prophet. I'm going to share a lot about what's wrong. I'm probably going to bum you out. And then I'm going to turn into a wizard and give you hope and tell you where the solution lies, in my view, and encourage you to act and act decisively to that end. So without further ado, what I'd love to do is just get into it and share with you kind of the defining moment for me. 30 years ago, I was a student at Dartmouth College, and I was inspired by the words of our President Emeritus, John Sloan Dickey. I was really trying to decide my path and figure out what I was here for. And in that great intellectual and stimulating environment of higher ed, these words sung to me. And President Dickey said, "The world's troubles are your troubles, and there's nothing wrong with the world that better human beings cannot fix." I find that incredibly encouraging. And so today I'll talk a lot about better business, business for good. But I'd love everyone in the audience to think about what better human beings are all about. I love the fact that Appalachian State is really focused on sustainability, and I think helping to build the next generation of better human beings. So I think, you know, the world has many troubles today, and I think it's going to take all of us together, summoning our best angels to solve those problems. In fact, anyone have a guess what this might be? BHAPs, big, hairy, audacious problem. BHAPs. You heard it here, folks. The world is full of them. And so we're going to have to figure out how we conquer these. And I want to just go through 6 of what I think are some of the world's great challenges. First, it starts with human rights. In the absence of effective justice systems, we really need to think about how business, as an international agent of change, can really advance human rights. Today, only 1 in 9 people live in a free and democratic state, and yet businesses like Colgate and Walmart and others do business across the globe, including Unilever, my former company. So what do we do? How do we show up in those countries that aren't free and democratic? How do we use commerce as a way to advance human rights? Secondly, is water shortage. While the earth is covered in water, 70% of the land mass of earth is covered in water. Frankly, only 2% is fresh water, and about 70% of that is non-potable. How did we get here? Right? Water is a fundamental building block of human health and survival. And we've got an incredible issue. The next wars will be fought over water rather than oil. Third, we've got an amazing health crisis going on. Right? It is, we have a global health crisis. We are all connected. This is one incredible web of human health. And if Ebola breaks out in one place, we're all susceptible. And access to health care, there are over 1 billion people on Earth who have absolutely no access to health care. How do we get this far? How do we get to 2018 and still leave 1 billion people behind without fundamental access to health care? How can we tackle that great challenge? And indeed, one of the big issues we find is this system effect. Right? We are all connected. We share this one precious planet. And yet, what we're doing is massively creating toxins into the environment. And as we do that, our bodies act as sponges, absorbing and bioaccumulating those toxins. And this is from the Center for Disease Control. that finds we have over 167 chemical compounds in the human body, many of which are carcinogenic. So we have got to really think about the connectivity of our actions and the impact on human health. We've got a well-being gap. Despite the incredible rise of capitalism that's lifted so many out of poverty over the last 100 years, we have left so many behind. In fact, if you think about it, I'd love to put a little question out there. If you took the poorest half of all humanity, roughly 4 billion people, how many of the richest people would it take to equal the wealth of the poorest 4 billion, poorest half? Any guesses? More than that. It's fewer than 300. You took all of the 300 richest people who could fit in this room. They equaled the wealth of the poorest half of the world. Wow, are we out of balance, right? So how do we think about that? How are we going to solve that and make this an inclusive rising tide for capitalism and not leave half the world population behind? Fifth one, I'm sure there are a lot of conversations around this topic on this campus, is climate change. In fact, you see it happening off the coast of Hawaii this morning, right? 9 of the last 10 years have been the hottest years. There is no doubt. You can call it what you want, and climate change is a polarizing term. I like to think of it as climate disruption, because that's what we're seeing, disruption. The patterns are being broken. And why is that? Well, we do live on a hotter planet. I mean, you just have to look at the global ocean heat content and its rise. And as heat content rises in the ocean, that's what leads to these amazing storms. The oceans really control our weather patterns. And so it's why we've seen monsoons here in North Carolina all summer, and droughts and wildfires in California. Things are changing. And as the CO2 rises, the oceans warm, and we can expect a lot more of this. So you know this issue very, very well, but we have to address this one in a hurry. And this just relates to what's driving it. I think there is a definitive cause and effect between the use of fossil fuels. Obviously, our GDP growth has been extraordinary over the last 100 years, but with that, so has the consumption of fossil fuels and the impact that that has on the climate. And finally, you know, the last 6th challenge is really about loss of biodiversity. Despite increased conservation efforts, we are seeing animals wiped off the face of this earth. It is happening at a perilous rate. In fact, 1 in 4 mammals today is suffering from the hands of extinction. And unfortunately, for many of the students in the room, your children will never know what it's like to share this planet with these amazing creatures. They will be gone before your children have the chance to sit in your seat. That is how acute it is today. And so we are having an incredible impact on biodiversity, and again, we are all connected. There is a web and a cycle. And as one goes, so go we all. So it's incredibly important to think that through. Frankly, I think these are the 6 great challenges of our time, and how this generation of students and leaders addresses that will define their generation. But I look to you, the students, to really think deeply about this and take it to heart and figure out which of these sing to you and how you might have an impact on those outcomes. It is, there's been an amazing study done by Dennis Meadows. He's done this twice, actually, and it's called The Manifestation of Constraints. And basically what it shows is if you fast forward over the next 30 years, we are going to be virtually at system collapse. So by 2050, or by the time the students are my age, the manifestation of constraints will have occurred. We will have run down our natural resources to such a point where we are in peril. Our industrial output will begin to decline. Our population will peak and then drop. Pollution will have spiked. And frankly, our food will begin to become inadequate to feed the 9 billion people on our planet. So this is what the statistical model show, but this doesn't have to be our future. We have the power now in the next 30 years to rewrite the outcomes. And Lee and I were having a good conversation last night about App State's sustainability goals and whether we need to reel them in from 2050. I dare say 2050 is too late. We're going to need to act faster. And so there you are. That's the profit, right? That is all the bad doom and gloom that I want to do to set the context for today. But I think there is a solution. And I'm encouraged by Churchill's words, right? That the pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist sees opportunity in every day. I encourage you to be optimists, to be solution seekers, to be innovators, to be accountable owners for how we move together on this incredible challenge. And I say to the students in particular, if you are an optimist and you see the magnitude of these challenges, imagine the opportunity in front of you, right? There is incredible opportunity for innovation, for impact, for making the world a better place. And so there's never been a greater time to enter the world and the workforce than right now to see a positive impact. So what's it going to take to solve these problems? I'd love to go into a little of the diagnostic. I think it takes two things. It takes pace. We have got to move at a breakneck speed. We have got a short period of time, and it really comes down to pace in order to address these within the time we have, and scale. And scale is critically important because these are huge problems. And as you think about scale then, think about where we can find and harness scale and move at pace against these two. So where do we turn for those? I think the solution, when you think about pace and scale, really rests with business. Right? Business is so much greater in its capacity than nonprofits and than government, right? So business in the US today alone is about 20 times the size of nonprofits and about 7 times the size of government. So we turn to business. I turn to business, I think, for that pace and that scale. And in fact, for that global reach. Business has to rewrite our social contract. It is just imperative that we have business leaders who think and act differently. It is really important to write the social contract into the contract of all business. Think about this from a scale perspective. Of the 100 largest economies, 51 are global corporations. And we're going to hear from Walmart later today. Walmart alone makes more than the poorest 161 countries on Earth combined. Think about that scale. And I think with that kind of scale and power comes great responsibility, and we're going to need to look for responsible leadership. And so I think what we're in the midst of is moving from an evolution to, frankly, a revolution. We've had business creates a profit from causing problems. That's really been the model. That's the flaw in capitalism. Today's conference is called Business for Good. I dare say that the first 100 years, business did a lot of good, but it did more harm than good. It really externalized all the issues and internalized the profit. And that's not a sustainable model. Right? We cannot continue that. The future is all about business creating a profit from solving problems, from being rewarded for being responsible citizens, for driving innovation that solves problems. And I think that we can break the fallacy of trade-off here between doing good and doing well. We have to do both. Business has to be rewired and rewritten to break that fallacy. In fact, I would encourage all business leaders to think about a triple bottom line approach, where we simply focus on profits is insufficient. And that has been the maxim for most corporations over a long time. But we're moving to this new age to think about the triple bottom line of people, of planet, and of profit, the 3 Ps. Those are fundamentals. That's what a balanced scorecard looks like. And that's what sustainable and responsible business leadership is all about. Frankly, I see business as a great calling. And I put my service into business to try to make a change and to drive that positive impact. And I'm encouraged by the change that we're seeing here. There are great companies. There are businesses doing good today. What companies do you admire? We don't admire any company. Is there anyone in Congress we admire? Come on. How about business? Terrific. Great. Acting locally, I love it. Interface carpet. I love interface. Do we teach the interface case study here? We do. Great. I think that's a remarkable business and an incredible book, too, written by their founder. Patagonia. I'm going to talk about Patagonia. Good. I love Patagonia. Oh, I've heard of that, too. All right. I'm not up here to pander, right? All right. There are a lot of great companies. And frankly, I think the notion of conscious capitalism, right, is on the rise. This is about business being in tune with society and thinking about how they use business as a force for good to solve environmental and human health problems, to solve those big 6 issues I opened with. You know, there is a new generation of companies today that are using the power of business to solve these problems. And I think the revolution is well underway. The ramparts are manned, you know, by 21st century leaders. And today, students in particular, as you join the workforce, 85% of students say they want to work for a socially responsible and ethical company. And 75% of young adults believe that corporations should create economic value for society by addressing the needs of society. That's great. That's a powerful mind shift. And if we can get every student to go into these companies as enlightened forces, we can change the leadership of these companies. Now, B Corps, how many people have heard of benefit corporations? Anyone in the audience a B Corp? Eric? All right, good. 2 B Corps here. That's great. Anyone hazard a guess how many B Corps there are in the world today? There are roughly 3,000. About 2,000 here, a little more than 2,000 in the US. We've got 2 in the audience. And we've got about 50 in North Carolina. And Eric and I and others who are B Corps here are looking to double the number of B Corps in North Carolina by 2020. So we're on a mission to spread this new means of doing business, different from the classic C Corp. We're gonna look at the way business can be a force for good. And there are some great models of this. We mentioned Patagonia. Frankly, you know, one of the visionary business leaders of our time at the forefront of this movement is Yvon Chouinard, who is the CEO and founder of Patagonia. And he's gone so far to create products that reduce demand. Think about that. He's a consumer good company that is creating products to reduce demand. That's extraordinary, right? So how many of you would run an ad that says, "Don't buy this jacket"? That was their holiday ad a few years ago. Any of you have ever seen that ad? Yeah. They spent a little bit on it. They got a lot of talk from it. That ad was incredibly powerful and great for their brand. How many of you would give away 1% of your revenue for the planet? That's extraordinary. You know, with companies making, call it 10%, to give 1% on revenue away. For a lot of companies, that is, you know, that could equate to the sum total of their profit. So it's an incredible business model. And why does it exist? Because Patagonia is there to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. That's the mission. It says nothing about enabling people to conquer the great outdoors or to climb higher or further or faster or to enjoy life in great and comfortable clothing. That has nothing to do with it. That's the tool they utilize for the mission that they aspire to be. Yeah? So Patagonia is a great case study. There's another company I love called Seventh Generation. Thank you very much. And of course, you know, I'm incredibly pleased to have spent the last 7 years of my career at Seventh Gen. The company's been around for 30 years and has been guided by a really clear set of principles. And it starts with something called the Great Law of the Iroquois Confederacy. This was written back before we were a nation. The tribes came together and had these declarations by which they lived. And one of them was, in our every deliberation, we must consider the impact of our decision on the next 7 generations. Imagine if we could rewind the clock 100 years and structure capitalism to think and act that way. Imagine the world we'd be living in today. How many of those 6 critical issues we would have resolved or solved through the power of business? Well, it's not too late, folks. We can start this today. Seventh Generation started doing this 30 years ago, and their mission is to inspire a consumer revolution that nurtures the health of the next 7 generations. We fundamentally believe you can't live a healthy life on a sick planet. You know? And the company's been at it for a long time. You know, it takes a pioneering spirit, and that's exactly what Seventh Generation's been trying to do. They've been innovators in transforming the way business is done, from product ingredients to packaging to reporting and disclosure, importantly. It's incredibly important when you get it wrong to share that and be transparent so that you can balance your wins and your advocacy. And Seventh Generation believes in that spirited disclosure. So, you know, over 30 years, what we've been able to do is set the standard. Set the standard for our industry that companies 100 times our size now have to think about and follow. Companies like Procter & Gamble. And we are having an outweighted effect. So a very small little Vermont company is actually rewriting the rules for how business gets done in our industry. And so we believe in the power of acting locally, but having that big global impact. So let me share with you a little bit about our company with a short video. We have a fundamental belief that you can't live a healthy life on a sick planet. What we put in our bodies, on our skin, and in the environment around us directly impact our health and well-being.
Seventh Generation was created as a socially responsible company
to inspire a consumer revolution that nurtures the health of the next 7 generations.
Using everyday products in order to inspire a big transformation in our lives.
For me, it informs and influences all of the decisions that we make.
And you can see that in our aspirations.
There are 88,000 chemicals in use in the United States. Very few of them have ever been tested. We believe there's a better way.
Plant-based products that really work, that are affordable, that are safe for people and for planet.
We've been a leader in green cleaning and green personal care for 25 years.
Seventh Generation was one of the first companies to launch recycled paper products in the very early 90s. We were one of the first to put our ingredients on the back of our home care products to eliminate phosphates from auto dish liquids. And so doing on our own products affect the supply stream, moving the industry.
I'm a big believer in the power of business to do good for the communities around us. When every company mirrors our principles, we've succeeded.
I decided to dedicate my life and the work that I do to something that I could feel good about.
To further what we're already doing. How do we become a zero-waste facility? How do we reduce our impact? How do you be an advocate for creating change?
We live our mission and our values within our own walls.
It is a community. It's how we treat each other, how we take care of each other.
We are going to prove that you can do things differently.
Sustainability is a journey.
It starts with me, it starts with my family.
What are they going to think about for their children and the world that they're going to live in and what we're going to leave behind?
My job is to improve it, to leave it a better place than I found it.
Companies like Seventh Generation are proof positive that you can do well and do good. And I'm delighted that we're part of this movement of over 2,000 B Corps that really get it and are rewriting the rules of business. But for the 2,000 B Corps, there are hundreds of thousands of other companies that have to figure out the new rules. And the new rules are simply this. When I was at the Harvard Business School 25 years ago, I was taught that it was all about shareholders, about creating value, about the next transaction and delivering that one, and that you competed on a win-win basis. Those are the lessons that were instilled in me by the faculty at the Harvard Business School, and they're worthless. They're wrong. They're junk. And I've told the faculty that. And I give Harvard a hand. They are rewriting the way they teach, and importantly, these are the key rules. This is what the faculty here needs to embrace and understand. This is what our students need to come to understand if you're going to lead a sustainable, profitable, successful enterprise going forward. It is all about stakeholders. It is the way you treat your employees and see them as part of the company, as assets, not liabilities, right? The way you interact with your community. Every business has to be a responsible member of their community, including doing things like putting on solar panels and thinking about what your local impact is. If we all adopt our hometown, if every business adopted their hometown, we would change the world. It's that simple. Adopt your hometown. Be a positive citizen and a force for good in your hometown. And if every single company did that, we'd change the world. That's about stakeholder management. It's about being values-led, about being really clear on your principles, of putting values ahead of value, that it's not about eking out the last dollar and externalizing all the costs and internalizing the profit. It's about having a moral code. And you need to ingrain that moral code in every single employee in the institution. It's about relationships and not transactions. This is about building something for the long term, something for the good, about creating win-wins, not win-losses. And it's about collaboration. That's one of the critical skills we all need to learn. How do we work together? These problems are big, intractable. How do you flip competition on its head and really think about collaboration as a way to build? I know there are companies like Colgate that do that successfully with Walmart today, for example. And I'd love to see more of that. So I think those are the new rules of business today, and that's what we need to continue to teach. And with particular focus on the students in the audience and on the live stream, I'd love to spend a little bit of time thinking about what leadership looks like in the 21st century. How do we get this equation to work? Anyone know what that equation is? It all starts with the belief that BHAGs exceed BHAPs. What is that? Goals! Big, hairy, audacious, hairy-ass goals will trump over big, hairy, audacious problems. We need to set big goals for ourselves. And working together collaboratively, I think, and collectively, we will see that our goals will exceed the problems we face. So in this particular place, I asked the students to think about this. You may only have a year left. Hopefully, you're early in your career. You've got 4 more years at this great place. How do you start to think about leading and living the values right now while you're here? Right? This is about practicing, and it's about principles. Our faculty and staff inspire our students who have a strong service ethic and involvement in the community. Yay. Get involved. Be a part. Be a force for good. The green ethos at Appalachian infuses academic programs, environmental stewardship, research, and a community with an attitude of care for the planet. Let's demonstrate that community impact and that care and that engagement. And you can do that right here in your own backyard today, because the problems locally are acute. Right? This is just a little snapshot of where we stand, frankly, in North Carolina. 1 in 4 children in North Carolina today lives in poverty. Right? And it's 60% in Boone who live in poverty. Extraordinary, you know. That is just an amazing fact. You know, we have basically created this schism between have and have not. So how do we heal that? You know, if you're a kid in poverty today, you don't choose to be poor. And poverty is so much more than just food, right? It has impact on your academics and your ability to get a fair and full start in life. So what can you do? How can you engage? How can you be part of it? How many of you as students have gone out and served food to those who are in need of food? Great, thank you. How many of you gone out and swung a hammer on a Habitat site? Wonderful. I'm sure there's a local Habitat chapter, isn't there? Yeah, terrific. Okay. There are things that we can do. Maybe it's in your sorority and fraternity where you go out and engage with the community. But be that force. Make that part of your learning experience here. The engagement you will have on the community will last, it will stand with you, and it will be a core part of how you grow as a leader. And just your activity alone is proof that together, you know, we can solve these problems. And I think it's fundamentally important for our students today to think about what are the hallmarks of great leaders in the 21st century. You possess all those hallmarks, right? Take stock of your talents. You have vision to inspire, to see beyond boundaries, to differentiate good from bad. You have the courage to take the path less traveled by, to fight the good fight, to be a pioneer with conviction, to push forward through obstacles. You have the ability to collaborate, to think systemically and holistically, to work collaboratively with others. You can engage, be part of it, roll up your sleeves. You are already making a difference. How do you make that a lifelong habit? And finally, you have a moral code. Let that be your guide. Let that be your North Star in every challenge you face, in the decisions you make. What will be that code that you turn to? We have a moral deficit in our nation today. We need leaders who have a moral code, and that will help you succeed over the long term. And finally, I think it's really important to find your calling. You're well set to find your calling by setting goals for yourself. Big goals, aspirational goals. Write them down. Think about how you want to use this time here as a student. You know, what are your goals here? What are your goals and aspirations over the next 5 and 10 and 30 years? I dare say that perhaps one of the most successful tools I've used is goals. I set monthly goals and annual goals, 5-year goals, and life goals. And I can share those with you, and I update them every month and every new year. Write your goals. You have a 75% chance of fulfilling those goals if you write them down and share them with a friend. So take accountability. Let goals be your power. And how do you allow those goals to define and shape the purpose in your life, right? Take the time to write a 1-page personal mission statement. Get clear. Try to define your purpose. What is it you're here for? What are your unique talents? What will your impact be? What verse will you write in this amazing play of life? That is the question, right? Use these years on campus for self-insight, for self-discovery, for defining who you are as an individual. And as you define your purpose at the intersection between discovering your gifts and sharing your gifts, you are all endowed with great gifts. Intellectual capital, emotional capital, moral capital. Spend your time building these assets, enriching and sharpening these gifts. And when you do, think about employing your gifts. Understand they are meant to be shared. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said, an individual is not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concern of all humanity. Hopefully you'll determine through your experiences the shared value of this community and your own self-reflection that you are called to a higher purpose, the purpose to serve others. For it's in the pursuit of this that you will find that life changes from black and white to color, right? Or as Buckner described, your calling is where your deep gladness meets the world's deep needs. Let me encourage you to find and define your purpose from this day forward. Make a difference in people's lives. Be a part of this community. Protect and defend this precious planet. And as you do that, I think you'll find that you will become the leaders that can tackle these challenges and be the better human beings that we are all aspiring and that the world needs so greatly. Thanks very much for having me here today. Thanks, Marty.